Welcome to In the Money, an exploration of whether you can still make money in D2C and CPG. We follow the flow of money between founders, investors, lenders, service providers, and everyone else in the ecosystem, and try to ultimately answer the question, is D2C and CPG still a good business? Today on the show, we have Debbie Way Mullin, an entrepreneur based out of LA. She's the founder of Copper Cow Coffee, a brand that started in 2017 that was known for its pour-over coffee kits that combine sustainably sourced Vietnamese coffee with sweetened condensed milk. She's raised over $10 million, well into scale. You'll hear today about her journey navigating changing consumer preferences, channel mix, expansion into Target, Costco, and Walmart, and why every beverage business should still sell D2C. Hope you'll enjoy the show. Debbie, no warm-ups here. We get straight into the hot takes. We're recording, back end of April. And the big question is still around tariffs. You and I both have supply chains in Vietnam. Yes. It's been a bit of a whirlwind the last couple of weeks. How are you guys thinking about tariffs, planning? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think that the way that I always try to deal with uncertainty is hope for the best and plan for the worst. And I think I don't know if I ever had a juncture in the company where those two things felt so extreme in such a short period. To be totally honest, I went into this administration thinking that, Vietnam really, really loves Trump. It's something that I've known for a long time, ever since he ran against Hillary, and it's something that I know they're very cooperative, and it's that Vietnam has benefited so much from the Chinese tariffs that I was completely shocked when the news came in. I was really unaware of any type of gripe that Trump, the administration had with Vietnam and the list of demands that were about to come through. So I felt pretty blindsided. And, we had a shipment that was about to, was about to go onto the water, and it just missed the deadline. And, I think that right now we're trying to decide, well, how much of our production do we move up in this 90-day period with a view of pessimism, even though it still has a tariff that wasn't projected into our annual budget? And how do we think about augmenting our supply chain? We've talked to our customers about their openness, because we've always been talking about diversifying outside of Vietnamese coffee, just because the premise of the company was that Vietnamese coffee is a cheaper, better tasting, easier to grow coffee source. It's much more climate resilient. And now I've found really similar things in Cambodia and Laos and India. And so what if we championed a similar profile to a cup from other regions that are, mostly left out of the specialty coffee space? And our customers have been incredibly supportive when we've questioned that, put that out there. And yeah, in real time, we're just trying to scenario plan and figure out what happens with, because 0 to 46% tariffs is like absolutely insane. And just really thinking about how that and what that's going to do to our runway as a business, what that's going to do with our relationship with our customers and our business model generally.
Yeah. I remember we had placed our biggest PO of the year, a very heavy replan of core products, so definitely stuff that we needed. And then the tariffs got announced, it was on a Wednesday or something, but there was like a 2-day window that if you got it on the boat, you were exempt. We quickly said to our factory, hey, this has to happen. I think, and it didn't even need to get accelerated. It was kind of planned to ship out soon anyway. But we missed the deadline. And it was going to be a material, 6-figure tariff bill that we had not planned. And what was interesting, though, was our supplier was sorry, but we think it's going to be fine. And I was like, do you know something that we don't know? And so I'm curious, for your supply chain partners in Vietnam, are they worried? How are they thinking about it?
We have a lot of things made in Vietnam for us from our packaging. Obviously, we get our coffee there. And we've seen a real split actually in attitude. Like those who have been really bullish and excited about the US market remain to be so, in my opinion. And those who we're trying to convince to be one of our partners that we're just starting our relationships with, I feel like this has really spooked them. And so I think that I've seen a real division of attitudes. And I think that it's been one of the most foggy pieces of the business since I started this company 8 years ago, for sure.
Why do we love Numeral? Well, here's the good, the bad, the ugly. The good is that over 1,000 e-commerce store owners just like you use them for sales tax compliance, including some pretty big brands like Ridge, Emmy, Nomad, and Graza. The bad is that none of us got into this to spend a ton of time on sales tax and admin, which is why Numeral is able to help you in 5 minutes or less get full coverage, deal with registrations, ongoing filings, and compliance. It just happens in the background. And the ugly is that not a lot of store owners know that sales tax is actually personally guaranteed. Said another way, that the states could end up coming after you personally if you're not on top of it. Even a modest $5 million store owner could have Nexus in 20 or 30 states. Again, Numeral helps you stay compliant, and they even guarantee their work. That's why we love them. Go and check them out at numeralhq.com. So you launched Copper Cow in 2017, Vietnamese-inspired lattes and ground coffee blends, trying to make Vietnamese coffee more accessible to a broader audience. How has emerging brand coffee or specialty coffee evolved in those 8 years?
Oh my gosh, it's evolved so much. And I think that the way that we drink coffee and the way that what we put in our coffee has completely changed in the last 8 years. And when I first launched the brand, I was actually trying to start with a ready-to-drink beverage, because cold brew was kind of becoming a thing right around then. And I really wanted to do and this is where I was just so naive. I was like, I'm going to make a completely clean label, shelf-stable, under $3, great tasting Vietnamese coffee product. And turned out that that's actually physically impossible. But this was also 8 years ago where there was so little penetration of e-commerce with food and beverage that when I discovered the pour over format that's like pretty like synonymous with the brand, I got so excited just because my dad, he drank pour over every day growing up. And I was like, we can have that clean label because the sweetened condensed milk can be manufactured separately. So we actually built the business on this latte kit with the pour over and the creamer together. And we built the business to over $1 million, which is that one SKU, with the 2-in-1 SKU. I remember a Kellogg investor once said that I shouldn't be doing that, and he was right, especially as I have seen just from any event I go to, anyone we talk to, and especially when we started to augment our product line, that the way people drink dairy in their coffee has changed probably the most. So this was before there was the oat milk was widely available or known. And so to see the penetration of people wanting to have control over what they put in their coffee, it's still 70% of people are putting creamer and sugar in their coffee, but they're doing maybe a sugar alternative. They're doing oat milk. They're doing almond milk. There's so many different variations. And I think that for us, in the year 3 of the company, we started to put flavors in our coffee. And I was kind of against that idea to start with until I started to drink, specialty syrups at a cafe that were made with real ingredients. And we realized that if we put real herbs and spices in our coffee, that it would really emulate the same experience. And that coupled with seeing the rise of Spindrift, which is kind of outside the category of switching people from LaCroix over to, or these kinds of artificial or natural, quote unquote, natural flavors to real flavors, has proven to be a very solid market. And so just seeing that opportunity and trying to really talk to the coffee consumer about them understanding how flavored coffee can be changed are two things that we've really seen. But also, I think in this coffee crisis that we have, the proliferation, especially when I went to Expo West a few weeks ago, of things that people call coffee that aren't coffee, which I think is great because I think that people need to have variation. A lot of people can't drink coffee, pistachios that have been roasted and ground and called coffee. Obviously, tons of mushrooms and all types of things. But I think there's the definition of coffee is like really evolving right now.
Yeah. The matrix of kind of types of coffee, flavorings of coffee, types of milk, types of sweeteners. Does that make it hard from a PD kind of skew complexity? How do you kind of try to think about, hey, we want to get enough coverage of core customers, but not be so operationally complex and inventory broad? How do you balance that?
Such a good question. It's something that we struggle with all the time. I mean, we went really broad for when we were really focused on D2C in the pandemic. We launched a new flavor every month. And it was really exciting and it was really fun for the team. And sometimes they would be amazing. Sometimes, like, I think sometimes we would be holding on to them for many months. And I think that that was a really fun innovation time. But I think that, like you said, the consumer landscape has changed so much that the desire for, I want the newest, craziest thing every month is not where the market is. People are like, I want the best tasting, like regular thing at the best price. And I'm willing to buy bulk. I'm willing to buy, I just want to have some peace of mind for value and to be a little bit, and definitely much less adventurous than they were, a few years ago as post hyperinflation, or as maybe we're still in the middle of hyperinflation. And I think that it's been really hard to have that discipline. Our first flavor we ever made was a lavender coffee because that was something that was like just becoming really hot in our local coffee shop culture in LA. And we put whole lavender sprigs into the coffee. And that trend has definitely waned, and I think that we made the hard decision last year to wind that down as a regular, and it's because, you're looking at your product assortment and you're like, I know this is a sticky customer, but I think that if we wound this down, people would just switch to another product. And also, the flavored coffee has become such a big part of what we do. But at the end of the day, we sell the most classic coffee. You talk to any ice cream company and they are selling the most vanilla and chocolate no matter what they're famous for. And so you have to be really good at what your core thing is. And if that means sacrificing, some things that really brought you to where you are. I remember launching the lavender coffee and AOV doubling overnight, and suddenly we could afford a whole different budget of ads. Or when we separated the creamers from the coffee, again, like the revenue doubled overnight in terms of like we had such a huge incremental customer that we were able to get. And I think that there's just a lot that you can do to be able to find a way that customization is as easy as possible for that customer, but they're looking for value more than anything, rather than like every bell and whistle for you to provide to them, I think.
That's a really interesting perspective and not one that I thought about. Just to play it back, is it that kind of during a free money era, and maybe when people were stuck at home, but kind of getting stimmy checks, there was much more appetite for trial of new things. And now potentially we're at the other side. Consumer discretionary is really tight, and it's now much more back to the core and value, even the same customer cohort from 5 years ago.
Absolutely. I think that it was eerily, I mean, even before the pandemic, if we look at our cohort data from 2017 through 2022, it's eerily consistent. And then as soon as inflation and consumer behavior begins to get tighter, we see, even within this year, we've seen changes around what people are gravitating towards. The 25 packs of like our classic coffee and our classic creamers are such a big share of what we do today. And it wasn't something that was, it felt like at the time this was just for, the heavy user, but the typical customer wants to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that and try the latest thing. And like that used to be the thing that moved the needle. And now we're like, you just have to have the best value. And how we were able to win with our customers online for sure.
Beverage is notoriously hard to do online, combination of AOV, but mostly freight. You've since gone into retail. Maybe talk to both of those points of like, is it possible to do D2C beverage? And then also your journey into retail.
I think everyone should do D2C beverage in beverage, whether even if it's 5% of your business, because that data is so rich. I mean, there's no other way that you can find out exactly what someone orders and where they live, and you have their contact information to interview them. I mean, so many product decisions that have been so important to the company have come from us calling our D2C customers to understand, why did they do this behavior that you're seeing? And I think that that's so powerful versus like, yeah, I mean, it's great to ship pallets to Costco, but you really have no idea why that customer is or isn't buying it, right? And so I think that that'd be like the first full stop, that the data is absolutely necessary for you, and it's one of the cheapest ways in a way for you to be able to get that feedback. Um, and I think that you just have to look at your unit economics. Luckily, like our pour over format is particularly perfect for it. Ground coffee is perfect for it. You know, when you're shipping ready to drink, that is going to be at least 90% water, and shipping water is like not a great business model. Uh, I've never seen somebody make it work, especially at scale. But I think that that's exciting. But I do think that in a consumer environment where people are more price sensitive than ever and advertising is more expensive than ever, D2C is just really challenging, because for us, even though, yes, after someone spends about $30, like the unit economics are quite strong, it's still actually a lot to ask someone to spend right now on a product they've never tried. It even feels expensive to ask someone to spend $15 on a coffee product in a grocery store that they've never tried. And I think that that's been something that's been really challenging for us, in that we've again kind of decided to see like, well, how can our product line fit into that? And this year we're going to be launching singles of our pour overs in retailers. So Target will be the first to take it on, and so that you'll be able to try, what does real cinnamon taste like in coffee? What does our sustainable Robusta blend taste like in and you can do it for $1.39. And that's going to be a really great way for you to, of course, it's great that there's going to be a $1.39 MSRP coffee again in retail, but also a great way. And I think that other brands should be doing it. And, you're seeing it really blow up in the hot sauce space and in a lot of retailers like Walmart. And like, how are you able to kind of fill a void for how expensive things are getting, while also driving trial into the innovation that you bring to the market?
There would be a lot of D2C brand founders listening that want to go into retail and are hearing, well, Debbie, you got into Target. Like, that's what I want to do. Maybe walk us through like a 101 on a D2C native brand going into retail, brokers, distributors. Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is a wild world out there. And we're a little unique in that we've done retail from the beginning, and that the evolution of what we sell and where we sell has definitely changed over the years. But I think that I think it was in 2021 was when I brought on my first like sales hire. So I did everything for the first 4 years of the company myself. And we have hired brokers for some of the bigger accounts. And I do think that for some people, that brokers have been really successful. We have really struggled. I've probably wound up and wound down maybe at half a dozen broker firms across like natural grocery, which is kind of like the Whole Foods or the Sprouts or these independent grocery stores, and just haven't seen success. Versus our brokers for Costco or Target and Walmart have all been actually quite instrumental for getting on shelf, because it's like this whole ecosystem and world. And, you walk in there and it's like to really understand how you're going to make money and how you're going to build this relationship and how you're going to stay in the good graces with these retailers is like needs a lot of translation and hand holding. And these people, especially for these accounts that I'm talking about, they have standing meetings and they represent lots of other brands. And they don't have time to talk to every single emerging brand, and it's just been really, really helpful. But I think that they really range in like how much it costs to get on shelf with them. some of them have a really valuable customer and they charge rent for that. And they might not call it rent, but they're going to get you with some type of fee or, and it's just going to be really expensive. But, some of these retailers are really great, and I think Target has been this incredible champion of Copper Cow coffee. Like we just launched nationwide our a Mother's and Father's Day set that's going to be a little gift set that's alongside all of their mugs and fun Mother's Day and Father's Day gifts. And to have that nationwide at Target as a young brand is really incredible, especially as we're still expanding. We're in 400 doors today. And for them to be able to have data around how we perform across the store and how they've been a huge champion, but that's because they do see what we bring. That this is a unique price point, a unique experience for the Target customer.
Getting to Target is the first step. Selling through at Target to get the door expansion and the SKU expansion is a whole nother ball game.
Yes.
Is that something that your broker has helped with? The Target buyers have helped with feedback, or is it kind of all on your shoulders to be doing the right amount of trade spend, the right kind of product for shelf? Yeah, maybe talk about that component.
It's really interesting how every single one of these retailers have really different models around what they have small brands do. For Target, what's been really exceptional for us is, and maybe this is because we're originally a D2C brand, when we first launched with them, they were allowing us to almost unlimited create promos within the Circle app. And, I have small kids. I'm constantly ordering on the Target app to go pick up, and how that's been was a huge boon for us and how much that drove velocity and drove trial into the brand. I meet people all the time who are like, I discovered you at Target now. And that's actually one of our main ways that people are discovering us. But that's what's hard is like whatever worked yesterday isn't going to work tomorrow. They have revamped the Circle program, and you can do one a quarter now as opposed to we used to do one every other week. And so what's the next tool, right? And I think that there's a lot of things that you have to think about. You have to find a way to cost effectively make sure that you're on shelf and that you're on shelf in the right place, because these small brands like us that are in a limited number of stores, we're going to get lost in the back warehouse. That happens much less with Target than with maybe grocery stores that have like tons of food and beverage products. But it's definitely a high hill to climb. But I think it's how are you going to drive brand awareness? How are you going to drive trial? And that really is up to you. Again, they've done a great job at championing us into other parts of the store, like Mother's Day and Father's Day sales. And we are going to be in holiday sets chain wide. And those are things that are going to be really important for driving brand awareness outside of the coffee set. But it's still on us. I think the brokers and the buyers let you know if it's working, but it's not their job to give you the strategies. But I think that they're incredibly excited about selling the singles of the coffee, and I'm really excited to see what it does for as that SKU, but also to see what it does for the ground coffee products that we have on shelf today.
Maybe is there another example other than kind of in-app promo that has worked for activation or velocity?
Definitely. So there are companies that historically you would use called merchandisers that you would go and give a monthly fee, and then they have different account managers who would go and have their stores that they go and hit up and make sure that the list of brands that they represent are properly put on the shelf, and also are there any other opportunities within the store that maybe they could kind of sneak us on, and that is actually a really, really expensive service. You're talking like a minimum of like it's like $10,000 to $50,000 a month to be able to have that. So it's usually meant for it's something that's really great for people who have tons and tons of distribution and thousands of retailers in one state. But I think that for if you're talking about 400 Target doors, that's really hard. That's spread across the country. What we do is we've used a service that a lot of people are using called Aisle. And we've also used some of their competitors too. And it's just a really great way for them to be able to incentivize actual customers to go in, purchase the product, take a picture of what it looks like on shelf, and then tell you what store that came from. So you can say, hey, we're like, why are only 2 of our flavors? The box is on sideways. That was something that kept happening, was that people were just putting the box sideways. So it just was like, like you just saw nutritional information. Because I think that whoever was stocking the shelf ran out of space and just was like, well, the box fits easier this way. And it really helps because you'll wonder, why is this store not selling? And you'll assume that it's because it's not your customer, but then you find out it's actually just how it was loaded onto the shelf. So that was a really cost-effective way for you to be able to get and to be able to cover all of a nice, modest amount of stores, like 400.
What I want to tell you about today is Parker credit cards. Look, there are multiple subreddits dedicated to credit cards, points hacking, and cashback, and I get that. But what do entrepreneurs really want in today's market? Helping managing their payback windows when acquisition starts ramping. With Parker credit cards, you get up to 90-day repayments on ad spend, so helping you on your cash conversion rather than having all that upfront ad spend before revenue starts coming in. Parker allows you to spend aggressively while still managing cash flow, including meta spend. So instead of hunting for best points or cashback programs, realize that the best ROI is to be able to increase your ad spend without hurting cash flow. Go and check them out. Parker credit cards at getparker.com. Parker is a financial technology company, not a bank. The Parker Commercial Credit MasterCard, issued by Patriot Bank N.A., member of FDIC, pursuant to license by MasterCard International Incorporated. To move the conversation a little bit, according to Crunchbase, you raised a seed round in 2018, did a Series A in 2021. Equity markets into consumer brands has changed a lot in the last kind of 5 to 8 years. I'd love to hear kind of how equity fundraising has evolved for you, and including any conversations you might have had in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So we've had a pretty robust fundraising history. I always say that there's like something kind of weird about me, that I do enjoy raising money. It's something that my founder friends think that maybe there's some big character flaw in me. But I just think there is something really exciting about seeing some things in the data around how your company is doing and seeing the potential for where it can go and how exciting that is. I think what's something that you can't see when you do that, of course, is like huge macro shifts in the world, whether that's for your consumer, for your supply chain, or for the funding environment. We've experienced them all in the last few years. And we did we've had really supportive investors from our Series A, and we haven't had to go out to fundraise since the market, I think, really kind of has changed. I think that the bar for things has really changed in terms of, wanting to have profitability, looking at cash flow positive businesses. Growth rates are definitely the growth expectations are not nearly what they used to be. So the market, like a lot of the foundations of what we were building our business towards when we did our seed and our Series A are quite different. Something that I always come back to is, when I was first trying to raise that first round of capital, I remember going to meetings and getting rejections and seeing, peers alongside me who would get funded. And I was like, they have this metric or they have that going for them, and I don't have that. And like, how am I going to make it? And I had this really incredible mentor, my first institutional investor, Ben Tran, from Ascend Ventures. And he would just always say, Debbie, you have a really great product and you have a lot of proof that people really like it. And as long as you have that, like, you should not feel so self-conscious about comparing yourself to other companies and where they're at. I mean, and so we're in a stable financial place, and I think that, and we have a lot of proof around that people love the product. I think that I am still looking for that next thing that's going to take off, because there are brands that are taking off, but I think it's less like, people who are deploying huge marketing budgets in a way that's like making them explode, but like in a kind of, contraction, like consumer contractionary environment where people are looking to how do they take things out of the basket, or how are they getting a better deal? At the end of the day, the best, cheapest product is going to win. And I really think that we have that, and that's what's going on shelf. And so I just keep coming back to that, even if it's not exactly where I thought I was going to be when I raised my Series A in 2021. These things that you kind of keep coming back to just remember that you have a product that is like, people are buying more of it every day, and that is something that has happened since you launched the company. And if that's true, then you should keep going, and you should understand that you have something that's worth partnership and worth exploration and worth support.
I think in there is such a different difficult challenge that I've certainly struggled with as a founder operator, where crossing the chasm between two things. On the one hand, having customers that love you for what you originally went to market for,
Yes.
and that you still have these repeatable cohorts. And to your investor's point, as long as you have that, you have a business. But market pull and TAM are big forces.
Yeah.
And to cross the chasm into a slightly different, in your case, maybe value based in this current climate, and it's hard to serve both.
Yeah.
And it's just a really hard challenge. If you're like, okay, we have this good thing, but potentially we could have this even greater thing that has bigger TAM, bigger market pull, versus needing to continue to do marketing push. It's so tough.
It's so tough. And I think that there's a lot of grief in the founder journey with that people don't really talk about, because you're so busy talking about like, and then we changed this and then everything was like so much better. There's a lot of times where you change it, it doesn't get better is like the first thing that you have to struggle with. But then also like, when we first started, it was so fun making this latte set that was like ultra, ultra premium, and just making it like, I remember putting it on the shelf and just seeing that like every single person who walked by like picked it up, and how exciting that is. And to have it be a Neiman Marcus and written up in the Wall Street Journal, and like we were bootstrapped and all this stuff was happening, and how exciting that is. And, with that business also had 90% of its revenue in November and December, because we were just like this like very special occasion coffee. And sometimes I still have to remind myself when I'm like, oh, and then holiday, we're going to make it up. And it's like, no, you're a grocery business now. Like you have a photograph of a mug pouring coffee. Like it's not this like super, avant-garde thing anymore. And that's because that is what it is. It actually is a perfect everyday solution. And it was really nice. Like I remember when we pitched Target the single coffees, about how this was going to really change the business and change the acquisition and really please their customer. I remember her being just so amazing, saying like, it's really rare that you see a brand that's able to take a pivot into what the market is doing today, but it's still true to like what the brand ethos is. We're not saying like, oh, we're actually going to do protein cookies now. And like, which we all, like a lot of brands, and like, I mean, we've all thought of things like that to be able to kind of be able to find that next thing. But if you can't find that, then maybe that isn't the right next step for your company. But we are really excited to see how this product will evolve. But I mean, there are people who still are like, I'm really like, I was confused. I thought that a creamer would come in this. Why is there not a creamer? And I missed that flavor that you launched. Your rose coffee was my favorite. And these things where we're like, no, we have to have a narrow set of SKUs. We're a grocery business, and and that's how we're going to, like you said, have a bigger TAM and have a bigger market for us.
Today, I want to tell you about Move Supply Chain. We recently engaged them to look at additional options outside of Vietnam when the 46% tariffs were slapped on for our accessories business. They go and run an RFP process with dozens of manufacturers to get you sample ready on at least 2 backup vendors. Their operations team is based out of the Philippines, so an affordable cost, but as importantly, they're on the same time zone as our target Asian manufacturers. Move Supply Chain has deep supply chain experience with Western brands, including many CPG and DTC startups that you would know. We love working with them. MoveSupplyChain.com. Go check it out. Beverage is having a moment from an M&A standpoint. You mentioned earlier Spindrift, which had the acquisition announcement a couple of months back.
Yeah.
There's the Olipop and Poppy. Yeah, maybe speak to like, are we just at a point where kind of new, better for you beverage or alternative or specialty is at a tipping point, is kind of obviously mass market is ready for it?
That's a good question. I think that something that me and my founder friends talk about a lot is that obviously this journey is full of so much hard work and like grit and you name it. But it's sometimes you have to just kind of resign yourself to a lot of it is timing, because there's so many good business ideas that you find out that someone did it 5 years before, some variation that was really close, but timing is really important. And I think that what I think about all of those brands that you just said, what I love about all of them is that I think that they all provide, and I'm a customer of all of them, they all provide a really wonderful moment of like familiarity and joy, but that fits like the new regime of like, how can I have things be healthier for me? And, that's kind of what I think what everybody's looking for. And again, like it has to be at a great price. It can't be, I think that's what's really challenging right now for a new and emerging brand is that, you know, we still, despite all of the inflation and despite all of the change of cost of coffee, like we charge the same amount for our product. If anything, we charge a little bit less than when we first started out. Because when you're bootstrapped, you need to be able to, pay for everything yourself, and how challenging that is, and that it was exciting because there was a customer base that was willing to pay for that innovation. But today, I think that people are like, it has to be at a really affordable price. But I think that like, yeah, how do you create a moment that's familiar, but that you are trying to figure out how it fits into your new lifestyle, and how I think that's a great way to think about the market. And that's what we're trying to do with these singles is that, I mean, who doesn't think, our customer is someone where coffee is like their most important part of their day. It's this most joyful part of their day. And it's really hard that it has become so expensive, whether you're going to a coffee shop or that you have to spend $15 on a specialty bag of coffee, if not 20, 25, and that you have a way to be able to have exploration on a budget. And I think that that's something that we're really excited to bring to market.
Most joyous moment multiple times a day, I think, in some of our cases. Debbie, as we head towards a wrap, share with us what's been the biggest win of the last kind of 6 to 12 months?
That's a great question. I think for me, the biggest win has been that we've become organic certified. And when I first started the company, I made a bunch of, cold calls or talking to whoever knows somebody who knew something about coffee, that I was looking for organic Vietnamese specialty grade coffee, and how much everyone laughed at me. And eventually I was like, okay, maybe just specialty coffee, and how hard it was to find. And here I am 8 years later, and like we built it. It took hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment. It took, multiple tries with different partners, and just how much I think that we've proven through that process. And it's hard because I think it's you can't see that all under the hood, because people are like, well, I already know organic coffee exists, but how cheaply and how easily this can be grown in Vietnam, barring tariffs, should be incredibly more cost effective in the U.S. market. And so just really excited to bring that to market. It hits Whole Foods nationwide this summer, and just really excited to see how that does and to see how the market responds.
Amazing. And what's the thing that's got you most excited for in 2025? You've got obviously all this retail distribution happening, but is there tech, tactic, product line? What's got you most excited for this year?
I'm definitely excited about launching those singles and seeing like, is this filling the hole that I see in the market today? But I am really excited about like AI. I know my whole staff uses it all the time. I think that the ability for them to be able to do so much more with so much less, myself especially, I think is something that it's kind of eerie to be like, you're sitting here every day being like talking about like, what did Target think about this, broker, all these things, and you're like, in 3 years we're about to run our companies completely differently, and to just remind yourself that you need to be spending time hitting the pavement, looking at actually what a lot of these services are, because there's just so many things that go into running a CPG business that could really reduce error rates and reduce worker time by being run by AI.
We have to ask then, what's your favorite AI use case at the moment?
Proofreading. Because like there's something about the way that my brain is like configured that I cannot see a typo. Like what? And so if I write something, even if I read it over 3 times, there's going to be a bunch of typos because my brain will autocorrect it. So it's so wonderful to be able to just like throw that in ChatGPT and instantly know that there's going to be 90% less errors because of that, you know.
Debbie, thanks so much for coming on. Is there anything that you're seeking from our listeners, seeking from the universe? Where should people check you out, check out Copper Cow?
Yeah, we're super active on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, we can't wait. Please find us in all Whole Foods. And we are launching, we're in 400 Targets. We're in a lot of Walmarts. We're all over the place. So please try our coffee and yeah, continue to support organic farming in Vietnam.
Amazing. Debbie, thanks so much for coming on and can't wait till next time.
Thank you.
I love chatting with Debbie because she tells it like it is. Doesn't sugarcoat it, and gives really helpful tactical advice. I hope you enjoyed the pod today. We're super open to feedback. We'd love to hear from you. DM, comment, Twitter, LinkedIn. We'd love to hear what you think, the type of guests that you'd like to have on, what kind of topics. Thanks again for joining. Look forward to having you on the next one.